On the last day of Sammy's construction company, there was a major project ceremony. All of New York's most powerful construction contractors came. "Sammy, you're the king of this city," they said. "You can't pour concrete in Manhattan without your permission." Sammy smiled proudly. No one knew that the FBI would arrest him that same night, and he would give up 37 Mafia members, including John Gotti. The man who would confess to 19 murders was the city's most successful businessman. Welcome to Iron Will's Stories. Tonight we're telling the story of America's most famous Mafia informant, Sammy the Bull Gravano, the man who made millions as a legitimate businessman but also killed 19 people. This is a complex story where loyalty and betrayal, success and destruction, family love and criminal organization allegiance intertwine. In 1985, Sammy Gravano was one of New York's most successful construction contractors. Owner of Salvatore Gravano Construction Company, a businessman handling multi-million-dollar projects. Sammy's story seemed like a typical American dream. Started from Brooklyn street gangs, built his own business, became wealthy. At 40, he had a 30-acre farm in New Jersey, racing horses, a discotheque. The construction business suited Sammy perfectly. He was intelligent, organized, attentive to details. His customers loved him. Reliable, honest, someone who knew his job. Sammy's Plaza Suite discotheque was packed on weekends. Famous musicians performed, New York's elite partied. People waited an hour in line just to get in. But Sammy's real job was completely different. Sammy Gravano was underboss of the Gambino crime family, John Gotti's right-hand man. He was the second in command of one of New York's 5 Mafia families. In 1985, he had planned the killing of Big Paul Castellano. He was the man who organized the Sparks Steakhouse murder with John Gotti. The construction business was perfect camouflage. Big money, cash payments, union relationships, everything looked normal. No one suspected. Have you ever discovered someone you trusted was living a double life? Type double life. Sammy's real power lay in controlling Manhattan's construction industry. "I literally controlled Manhattan, literally," Sammy would say years later. "You want concrete poured in Manhattan? That was me. Tishman, Donald Trump, all these guys, they couldn't build a building without me." Here's how the system worked. New York's concrete industry was controlled by 4 Mafia families. Permission was required for every major project. They manipulated bids, steered contracts. Sammy's job was to manage this system. The construction company was just camouflage. His real job was coordinating mob operations in the billion-dollar construction sector. Every major building, every skyscraper, every bridge, the Mafia took a cut from all of them. Sammy's percentage came not just from his own company's profits, but from all construction projects in Manhattan. The irony was this: Sammy was genuinely a successful builder. His projects finished on time, he did quality work. His customers were satisfied, but at the same time, he was eliminating competition, manipulating prices, threatening labor unions. The Plaza Suite discotheque was where this dirty money was laundered. Thousands of dollars in cash came in every night, shown as legitimate business income, thus cleaning crime money. Sammy's construction empire was actually New York's most sophisticated money laundering operation. What secrets might lie behind a successful business? Type secret empire. In 1990, Sammy Gravano was at the peak of the Gambino family, John Gotti's most trusted man, in the underboss position. But tension between them was growing. Gotti loved media attention, appearing in newspapers as the Dapper Don, giving television interviews, expensive suits, flashy lifestyle. Sammy was uncomfortable with this. John draws too much attention, he thought. The Mafia's golden rule was silence, but Gotti was chasing fame. Worse, the FBI had planted listening devices in the Ravenite social club. Gotti's insistence on weekly meetings was putting them all in danger. Sammy began to sense that Gotti was becoming suspicious of him. In wiretap recordings, he heard Gotti criticizing him, losing trust in him. Sammy's construction empire had grown so large that even Gotti began to feel jealous. Sammy makes too much money, he's becoming too powerful, he thought. In December 1990, both were arrested, in the same case, with the same charges, but the FBI had very strong evidence. When Sammy learned what Gotti had said about him in prison, he was shocked. The man he'd worked with for years, whom he saw as a brother, was working behind his back. This was Sammy's breaking point. How would you feel if you learned your closest friend stabbed you in the back? Type betrayal point. In fall 1991, FBI agent George Gabriel approached Sammy Gravano. "Sammy, we have an offer for you," he said. "John already sold you out. We heard the wiretaps. You talk too. Be with your family." It was a terrible dilemma for Sammy. Cosa Nostra's most sacred rule was never to become an informant. Omertà, silence. Any man who violated this rule would be killed by the gangs. But Gotti had already broken these rules. He had backstabbed Sammy, blamed him, lost faith in him. Sammy's family was also an important factor to consider. His wife Deborah, children Karen and Gerard. He wanted to protect them. And finally, he made his decision. In November 1991, Sammy Gravano announced his cooperation with the FBI. One of the biggest betrayals in American mafia history was beginning. The FBI's offer was attractive. In exchange for confessing his role in 19 murders, he would get away with only 5 years in prison. The family would also be placed in witness protection. Sammy accepted the deal. Is 5 years in prison fair for 19 murders? Type deal justice. In early 1992, the John Gotti trial was America's most watched court proceedings, and the star witness was Sammy "the Bull" Gravano. In the courtroom, Sammy faced his former boss, Gotti. Two former partners had now become enemies. Sammy's testimony was captivating. He told in detail how they planned the Castellano murder, what jobs they did together, how the Mafia family operated. "John Gotti was the boss of the Gambino family," Sammy said. "I was the underboss. We made every major decision together. We planned every murder together." Gotti's lawyers attacked Sammy. "You're a killer. You've killed 19 people. How can we trust your word?" But Sammy kept his composure. "Yes, I'm a killer. But I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth." The atmosphere in the courtroom was electric. The media was recording these historic moments. The most dramatic moment was when Sammy looked directly at Gotti. The two men made eye contact. Years of friendship were now ending in a courtroom. For 9 days, Sammy testified. New details, new confessions every day. The result was inevitable. John Gotti was found guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. Would you testify against your former best friend in court? Type courtroom betrayal. After Gotti's conviction, Sammy was placed in witness protection. His new identity, Jimmy Moran. Profession, swimming pool installer. Place of residence, Arizona. The former underboss of the Gambino family was now building pools under the sun. This was a major change, from the streets of New York to the deserts of Arizona, from $1 million construction empire to a small pool business. But what was in Sammy's blood hadn't changed. The desire to make money. He expanded the pool business, hired employees, advertised. He was taking his second chance life seriously, but his past wouldn't leave him alone. In 1997, he gave an interview with Diane Sawyer on national television. He appeared on cameras as Sammy the Bull. Secrecy would end now. In the interview, he made a shocking claim. If they had come to kill me, the corpses would have been theirs, not mine. This meant leaving the witness protection program. He was no longer Jimmy Moran. He was Sammy Gravano again. In 2000, he made his biggest mistake. He started selling ecstasy with his son Gerard. He established a large drug network in Arizona, ironically because he was against drugs when he was in the Mafia. The FBI caught him. This time, no one offered cooperation. Would you ruin your second chance? Type second chance. In 2002, Sammy Gravano was in court again, this time with indefensible crimes, drug trafficking. The judge sentenced him to 19 years in prison. The special treatment he received as a Mafia informant was over. He spent 17 years in prison. When he got out in 2017, he was 72 years old, an old, sick, exhausted man. Today, Sammy lives in Arizona. He does a podcast called Our Thing. He tells old Mafia memories. Some see him as a hero, the man who ended organized crime. Some as a traitor, the man who killed 19 people and got only 5 years. The families of victims are still seeking justice. Laura Garofalo's father, Eddie, was killed by Sammy in 1990. People get more sentences for 19 murders, says Laura. This isn't justice. Sammy's own family is also broken. He divorced his wife, Deborah. His children, Gerard and Karen, are trying to escape the effects of the criminal world. Karen appears on the reality show Mob Wives. Gerard tries various businesses. Both are trying to live with their father's past. Sammy the Bull. Gravano's story is a complex tale where loyalty and betrayal, family and criminal organization, success and destruction intertwine. On one hand, he made a historic contribution to the fight against organized crime. He brought down John Gotti, collapsed the Gambino family, dealt a heavy blow to the New York Mafia. On the other hand, he was a killer who murdered 19 people, stole millions of dollars, manipulated the construction industry. Which side weighs more? Sammy's iron will manifest it in 2 different ways throughout his life. First, the determination he showed to rise within the Mafia family. Then, the courage he showed to destroy that family. In both cases, he went all the way. He didn't take half measures. If you ask if I'm sorry, of course, he says today. Would I do it differently? Of course, but it's a belated regret. Sammy Gravano's story teaches us this. Success doesn't always come through legitimate means. It's possible to build a construction empire, make millions of dollars, but at what cost? His iron will enable both his rise in the criminal world and his destruction of that world. But no success is worth the lives of 19 innocent people. Real power lies not in protecting money, but conscience. Real loyalty is to family, not gangs. Real success is not in creating fear, but in building trust. Subscribe to Iron Will Stories for stories that show the true cost of crime. If this story affected you and you understood the dark side of success, write Iron Will comments. Remember, it's important to know the story behind every successful businessman.